Welcome to today's Explainer. We're going to be tracking one of the absolute most fascinating digital grassroots movements of our time. We are talking about the history of ASMR and how it evolved from a completely anonymous health forum post into this massive global phenomenon with over 500 million viewers. And you know what I really love most about this story is that it wasn't discovered in some sterile laboratory. It was discovered by regular, everyday people on the internet. And their shared experience was so undeniable that it literally forced the scientific community to sit up and pay attention.
Okay, let's dive into this. The spark that really started the whole shebang happened on October 29, 2007. An anonymous user going by the screen name OKWhatever started a thread on StudyHealth.com. The title of their post was just, "Weird Sensation Feels Good." They described a very specific physical sensation, a sort of tingling that started right at the crown of their head and moved down their neck. And they noted that it happened when they heard soft voices, experienced close personal attention, or just listened to certain quiet, methodical sounds. So they put this out into the void, right? They just wanted to know if anyone else out there experienced it. And almost instantly, over 300 people replied. They all knew exactly what this person was talking about. They'd all felt it. But crucially, absolutely none of them had a name for it.
I just want to pause for a second and emphasize this staggering juxtaposition. We just looked at a single isolated forum post from 2007. Fast forward to today, and 500 million people search for this exact experience every single month. That is 500 million people. Yet most of those viewers have absolutely no idea how this feeling even got its name, who first put it on YouTube, or why it took researchers nearly a decade to take it seriously.
Section 1. The Unnamed Feeling. Long before the internet connected us all, this experience existed in millions of people's daily lives. In fact, most people who experience ASMR trace their earliest memory of it all the way back to childhood. Just imagine these incredibly relatable triggers for a second. You're sitting at your desk while a teacher writes slowly and methodically on a chalkboard. Or maybe a doctor is carefully and quietly examining your ears during a checkup. An older family member sitting nearby quietly leafing through the pages of a heavy book. Or a hairdresser working meticulously, snipping away without saying a word. These everyday moments produce this unmistakable feeling. It was calm, tingling, deeply pleasant, and honestly, almost hypnotic. But because it was completely invisible to anyone else, a lot of people just assumed it was some unique quirk of their own nervous system.
So the internet finally allows people to realize they aren't alone in this quirky neurological response, but it created a brand new problem. What on earth do we call it? Following that 2007 forum post, the community spent years struggling to find an accurate name that would actually stick. And early attempts were, frankly, a bit all over the place. Brain orgasm emerged early on, but that was pretty quickly dismissed for being wildly inaccurate to the deeply relaxing nature of the feeling. Other proposals like attention-induced euphoria, that unnamed feeling, and head tingles circulated on the forums. But none of them really had the right weight to legitimize the experience, you know?
Section 2. Coining the Acronym. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is exactly who came up with the name and how she did it. In 2010, a woman named Jennifer Allen created a Facebook group to discuss the feeling. And here's the kicker. She wasn't a scientist. She wasn't a content creator. She was actually a cybersecurity professional. She deliberately proposed a term made up of sterile, neutral words to give this community a clinical term that they could use seriously. Autonomous sensory meridian response. And she broke it down meticulously. Autonomous because the response happens involuntarily, totally without conscious control. Sensory, to anchor it firmly in a real physical experience. Meridian was used to signify a peak or high point. Actually, a lot of people think this relates to the energy pathways in traditional Chinese medicine, but that's just a common misconception. And finally, response, to denote a clear physiological reaction, rather than just a mood or a preference. It wasn't a perfect term, and she knew that, but it sounded official, and it worked.
Section 3. The YouTube Explosion.
Okay, this is one of my absolute favorite facts from this explainer. The very first dedicated ASMR channel, called WhisperingLife ASMR, was uploading whispering videos all the way back in 2009. That is a full year before Jennifer Allen even proposed the ASMR acronym. This creator was making dedicated content for a sensation that literally had no agreed-upon name, serving a community that mostly just existed in the shadows of anonymous forum threads. It's incredible.
And this brilliantly illustrates the undeniable math of this community-first growth. Once that initial seed was planted, the idea spread like wildfire. From just 14 dedicated channels in 2009, it grew to 51 channels in 2010. That's a 3.6 times increase in a single year. By 2011, it was at 111, and by 2012, there were 183 dedicated channels. This massive bottom-up community was being built completely by people sharing personal, strange, comforting experiences, and the whole thing was happening completely under the radar of mainstream media.
Section 4. Science finally catches up.
Tracking this journey reveals a pretty agonizing 8-year delay. The first forum post validating the experience was in 2007. The name was officially coined in 2010. But the very first peer-reviewed academic study, that wasn't published until 2015. That is a massive, massive gap between a community validating their own neurological realities and science actually taking it seriously.
So the crucial point here is what that 2015 study actually accomplished. Published in Peer J by Emma Barrett and Dr. Nick Davis, this foundational paper surveyed 475 ASMR viewers. It finally did the heavy lifting of identifying the primary triggers and confirming the therapeutic uses that the community had been championing for years. But more than anything else, it established that the phenomenon was real, consistent, and widespread. It gave future researchers the scientific baseline they so desperately needed to justify further study.
And let me tell you, once those floodgates opened, modern science ran with it. Between 2022 and 2026, we've seen an absolute wave of research. We now have fMRI studies physically mapping brain activation during ASMR. We have EEG studies measuring brainwaves, and HRV studies documenting the tangible physical effects on heart rate. There are even studies looking at cortical structure, suggesting that some people are literally neurologically predisposed to feel this. Today, ASMR is being studied for actual clinical applications to help patients with insomnia, severe anxiety, and even those recovering from surgery. Science has finally mapped out exactly what those 300 anonymous forum users intuitively knew in their bones way back in 2007.
In less than 20 years, ASMR went from a quote-unquote weird sensation to one of YouTube's largest content categories, in an active, exciting frontier in neuroscience. The people who built this didn't set out to reach 500 million monthly viewers. They just wanted to know that they weren't alone. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? If 500 million people were walking around with a shared, invisible neurological response that science totally ignored until the internet gave it a name, what other unnamed feelings are we just waiting for the digital world to discover? Think about that for a second. Thanks so much for hanging out with me, and I'll see you in the next